Good evening, one and all. We are now on a different set of platforms for tonight. Twitch is no longer being utilized, at least for a time. Now I'm going to test my audio, make sure everything's all good to go. All right, I hear stuff coming through. That's good. All right, we're in the clear. Let me just change the quality down so it doesn't interfere. Okay, so once I know how this new setup's going to work, I'll have some ways to optimize it. For now, I'm just going to be mirroring it from what I had beforehand. I have some ideas I want to improve upon, though, for the future. Okay, so we're going to be continuing this artwork. We're going to be updating the shadows, and I'm going to change Milo's face. I've been wanting to change it for a while. I liked it initially, but then I realized that it just wasn't fitting his character. So I'm going to go back to the original sketch. But first I want to draw the shadows for the rest of the body, see how it's looking, because I need that to kind of help compare everything before I get too deep into alterations. Something I wanted to mention about the reason for leaving Twitch. I know there's a lot of people right now that are leaving Twitch for a variety of reasons. I heard about this recently, that a lot of people are jumping ship because the platform is dying. I've heard that. That's not the reason why you jump ship. I actually threatened to jump ship a while back, and that was when we started getting bots that were coming into the streams. Bots that had very malicious, evil messaging. Ads are one thing. These ones were actually telling people to start doing harm to themselves. Thankfully, it censored it, but I had to see it because it wouldn't just automatically delete it. And I would report them, and nothing ever changed. It was the violent rhetoric that I couldn't stand. And it was prevalent for many months. It disappeared. But then something else happened. Twitch started getting violent again. But this time it was being protected by their management. That was when I was like, nope, can't do it anymore. Me and several other people have jumped ship because of that. Although mine, for me, the issue goes back months and months. Goes back technically years, ever since I worked for Amazon boxing for them. I've never been a fan of Twitch, and I gave it a shot because I couldn't get any other platform to work. I wanted YouTube to work, and for the first 2 years, could not get YouTube to function. I tried, and it just refused to cooperate with live streams. Even uploading videos was an absolute nightmare. I have very slow internet. And so to upload a video would take hours and hours, and it crashed constantly. So my desire to want to try and make content for YouTube for long form disappeared. Rumble was a lot more reliable, but it had no views. So Twitch became my solution for that, even though I wasn't a fan of it. So to leave it is actually something I've been really looking forward to doing. I have no idea if we'll be on X for a substantial amount of time. I hear that the bot problem on X is actually the worst of all. So if you are flesh and blood, would you consider just waving a hand, and I will accept that. It just helps me to know who's flesh and blood, who's not, because we are in a world that is very fake, and I really don't like that fact. I'm somebody who likes genuine things. I like people to be genuine, to be valued more than just text on a screen. The streaming world doesn't really favor that, and I do realize that. This piece of artwork was commissioned by a fan a couple of years back. And it took me a long time to finally come around to it. And it's taken me weeks to get the drawing to where it currently is. I haven't been able to dedicate the same amount of time that I could do in the past. I had a lot more flexibility, free time to pull it off. And that disappeared when I had to go back to full-time at work. Someone asked if I would consider doing this as kind of a full-time thing. I was like, well, I'm not good enough for that, first and foremost. And even if I could get better, The industry is collapsing. And that's something that I hate to say. I do not want it to collapse. I'm very much going to resist it every step of the way. But it is collapsing because a lot of people want cheap to the point of where they're leaning into all the AI nonsense. It's making it very hard to try and do anything that is handmade art these days. You have to have a reputation, and I don't have a reputation. Okay, it did not turn out so well. So thus, you end up just kind of doing it for the fun of it. Well, this was the last commission that I accepted. And my ability to do it, like I said, disappeared immediately. So it got put on hold. It only recently has made a comeback. And I plan to do more artwork that's akin to this, but it's not going to be on the commission side. Just because the commission side, again, is collapsing. I'm going to try this other technique. That was working, but I just need to amplify things. And because he is in shadow, I'm going to do a reverse shading. We're going to add the shadow and then eat away at it with the erase button. I know a lot of people finally had enough of Twitch for the very reason that I left. But not a lot of people made that known. There's people who are on there. Unfortunately, they'll never leave. I'm not saying unfortunately in that, oh, they have to leave. It's more like I find it unfortunate that they don't have other options. I do have other options, but if it had been last year, I would not have had other options. I would have been stuck. Only reason why I can break away now is because of Restream. That's the only reason why I have that ability right now. Before that, YouTube hated me, and Rumble kept glitching. Restream fixed all of that. I have had very few problems, very few stream-related problems since then. Even though it's an expensive subscription, it's worth it if you want to actually have some peace of mind when you're doing this stuff. I don't have to worry about the stream crashing, not nearly as much as I used to. It used to be where every stream I had to wonder, is it going to crash this time? The moment that I swapped over, those problems just evaporated. I was talking with someone who, he heard the price tag of it, which is $100 a year, and to him it was outlandishly expensive. But you have to understand that compared to other tools, other media tools, that's not bad. Sure, it's expensive, but it's no more expensive than some other tools out there. And it allows you to be in multiple places at once. that in itself is kind of worth it. But one of the biggest benefits is that it is biggest benefit is the fact that it is stable. Other things, you can get a software or a subscription and they'll offer features. Restream doesn't offer necessarily great features, but the reliability in itself speaks volumes. So when it comes around to December, I'll be getting it again, just because it has been so useful. Now, granted, the streaming world has crashed, and so the benefit of it is not really as useful as it used to be. That's kind of irrelevant to me. The one thing that I do grieve the fact of is that there are many, many, many people that I still interacted with on the Twitch side. The majority of the growth happened on Twitch. Despite it being a dying platform, YouTube was probably the second. Rumble was dead last by a long shot. And that's just because Rumble's Rumble. It is not well built, and it has problems galore. Maybe they'll fix them someday, but I think they need to change their business model before that will really start to take off. Like some of the other weekdays, I'm not going to be going on for too terribly long tonight. I'll be going on for about 2 hours. That seems to be the time frame that works best for the weekdays, but I do realize that's usually when the streams really start taking off. And so, for the most part, I try and be as flexible as possible. But right now, I'm going to plan for just a 2-hour stream, and then get ready for bed after that. I got some good progress earlier today. Good progress on the short story that I'll be releasing soon. I'm in the process of doing the final edit, the final draft, and afterwards I'm not sure what I'll do with it. Like, I'm going to be putting it onto the website. I don't know what I'll be doing with it after that. I kind of want to try and do a small printing with it. I know it's not going to be a massive seller. It's not like super exciting. I find it meaningful, but I realize that the number of people are probably going to find it interesting, at least in the online spaces, are probably not going to be all that thrilled about it. I do know a demographic that would love it. They're just not online. So I got a problem. I wrote it and I realized, dang, all the folks that are going to enjoy this are going to want it in a book form. And I haven't the foggiest idea how far to kind of go through with that. It's also a tough story. Not like it is going to be like tear-wrenching or anything like that. It's tough because it addresses very real-world challenges and it does it in a bit of an allegory. And some people are probably going to really not like that. There are some elements to it that are deeply religious, and that's one of the reasons why it's tough to try and put it online. I'm not among a whole lot of large Christian communities online, and so the people that would want it are going to probably be folks that are going to be on other platforms, or more likely on kind of just local gatherings. And I don't have a very big audience up here in Alaska. In fact, I have an audience of like 3. Because there are some problems when you're trying to make stuff for Alaska or the people up here in Alaska, because everybody is kind of cut off. Everybody's got their outdoor activities, they have their communities that they're already a part of, and if you come along and try and do something that's product related, you kind of have to go to a fair. I don't have enough to try and participate at a fair event. Next year, I hope to be able to have that. And so that may be that come this time next year, I'll actually have a booth at an event. That would require a couple things to happen, though. And so I can't plan for it necessarily. Well, I can plan, I just can't, like, take action on that. One day, it'd be neat to actually take one of the things I write to a larger event. But that would be way off in the future. That's assuming that I can even do something successful locally. Don't bite off more than you can chew, otherwise you get yourself in serious trouble. I have learned that firsthand. I am not interested in making that mistake again. Now, if you have an interest in a certain type of art or animation, what would that be? What is something that you think, oh, I would love to see this, and nobody's doing it? What would that be? For me, it has been a little bit of disappointment that more deep philosophical, theological entertainment doesn't exist. Now, you can't really get really deep in entertainment if you're going to go deep philosophical, theological, but there are some ways you can, and I don't see a whole lot of channels doing it. When I do find them, they're usually really interesting. Some other folks, like, they want more gaming, but of course there are gamers that come by the dozen. I'm not saying I'm going to be going back into gaming or anything like that. But when you come to like stuff you want to see, what stands out to you? Or what are you looking for? realize there's a problem with X. This is, I haven't done this a whole lot, and so there's something amiss, and I'm not sure why. It is, it's not allowing me to post the update here. You know, the stream may actually end up being a lot shorter than planned, because this is actually a little frustrating. I probably need to troubleshoot this. I'll go for about an hour, and then I'll probably call it there, just because I'll need to try and troubleshoot what's going on with this. Okay. X doesn't have comments? No chat? Like, it's all locked for me. I don't know why. That's actually a bit of a problem. How can I be able to post links to the, let's see here. I can post links if it's not operational. Okay, well. Oh, Facebook's the same way, as is LinkedIn. Not like I'm on there, but... Okay, so, and this is why Rumble won't do it. So Rumble had the same problem. So in other words, Restream can only access the YouTube side. And yet there's... Huh. That's a bit of a problem. Oh, it looks like I have to get something else in addition. Yeah, we'll have to try and probably find another platform when it's all said and done. Very weird. Like, it won't operate, period. Is there a setting that I'm missing? Great. Comments that... Oh, interesting. You can also interact with other members and audience by tapping on a comment to view... Oh, wait a minute. I think I might be able to test this. So apparently it does operate off of a different sort of system. So that means I have to have it pulled up separately. Okay, pressing on here. And testing. Oh, okay, it does operate. It does appear on Restream. So the documentation was a lie. Right, let's try this other option here. What is the other test that can be done here? Okay, so that doesn't work. What about this? Complete action using... Okay, no, that will not work. Alright, so it looks like we got also this. Test. Alright, so it does work. Alright, so that notification was for naught. So that means I don't even need to have it pulled up on the other screen at this point. Duly noted. It will take a while to get the hang of it, but at least it's working, and that means we can be able to keep pressing forward with this test for the full week. The goal is to do a full week with this system, with this setup, and then after the first week, do a reevaluation and proceed from there. Now, I gotta confess, I have not really watched a whole lot of stuff on X myself. It doesn't seem to be a good place for watching live streams. Some people used to do it, and I've noticed they've stopped doing it. Other people are doing it, and all they've been mentioning about is the bot problem. So if you're not a bot, feel free to change my mind on that. If you're on a platform where you can like and dislike, feel free to do so. It does assist in me just knowing who is real and who's not. Anyway, that's enough of blabbering on about that. Now back to something that's a little bit more meaningful. So I want to pose this question to you. If you were to find yourself back in the olden days, how long do you think it would take to adjust from your modern way of living to an old-fashioned way of living? Or do you think that's impossible? I'm someone who is certain that I could have had a fairly good life back in the olden days. At times you could say I become a little too nostalgic for a life I never had. Nostalgic for a world that I never got a chance to really see. I grew up basically on the road, in museums, across the country, across the world. My first shell shock of my first culture shock was coming back to the country. But I think I would have really done well back in the olden days. Now, some people really don't like that idea. They think, hey, back in the olden days, it was highly unsanitary, it's full of diseases, there's all these problems, we would hate it, we would probably not last very long. And to that, I would say, yes, you probably would not. most of us are too weak. But if you've been born into that culture, your body would have been actually far stronger and able to deal with it. So if you were assuming that you were born into that era with a proper immune system that has not been compromised by modern medical practices or modern eating habits or things like that, do you think it would be a good experience, or do you think it would be a problem? There was a guy who I was talking with, and he responded to it as in this way. He said he would not do well. In fact, he thinks that he would probably not last more than a few days, if that. And his reasoning was this. If he had been born, well, if he had a modern mindset and he was to find himself back then, he wouldn't have been able to appreciate it because of all the moral compromises he would have to have. And I was a little curious about that, so I asked what sort of moral compromises. And he said, oh, all the things like the social problems, the slavery issues, the degrading of women, the abuse of children, or any number of things. And he was on a rant that, honestly, from a worldly perspective, made a lot of sense. And in a way, I kind of wanted to agree with him. But I know a little too much about history, and I knew that was a very modern way of viewing the problem, and kind of conveniently overlooks some glaring errors with that reasoning. So curious, do you recognize what the problem was? See, the issue it comes down to this. Oh, you have a problem with slavery back then? Well, yeah, people back then had problems with slavery too. Christians were pushing for a long time to get rid of slavery. Eventually, they won. They were trying to get rid of it for centuries, millennia, technically. Each country rejected slavery at different periods of time. So I can give that. Yeah, you might not like it back then because you would have to deal with that. So here's the question. If you're so staunchly against slavery back then, which again is a good thing to be opposed to, does that mean that you're trying to stop modern day slavery? Uh-huh. There's there's more modern slaves than there have ever been in history. It's an astronomical amount. So if you feel so strongly about that and you think that, oh, I couldn't have been back in the olden days because of the slavery issue, well, then that probably means that you're unaware of the fact that we have more slaves today than ever before. Which means that's not really a good argument. And I do believe that's an important distinction to make, because we can go through life being very hypocritical. We can think for certain that we know the proper way to do things. How dare people live this certain way? I'm much more moral than that. I would never do something so terrible. It sounds good. It sounds like you're going to win a lot of popularity points. But what happens when you suddenly realize that you actually have to make that hard decision to make a stand now? It's very easy to accuse a ghost of your past. It's very hard to address a problem here and now. People that had problems with slavery back in the old days, I agree with them. It's a big problem. But I want to see them have that same amount of desire to do what's right in the here and the now. Why do we just draw the line at things that are historical? Aren't there more problems in this world that need to be addressed? If we only address things that are a problem in history, it makes us feel good. We can show how much better we are, how much we've improved as a culture. I'm not going to say as a species, because there's only one technically sentient species on this planet. But then you have that conundrum. You have to now make a stand and possibly lose friends. I've done that. I've learned the hard way that you will lose friends if you make a moral stand. In fact, you will lose way more friends making a moral stand than if you go up in ridicule and shame a close friend. You go up and tear into somebody with hateful rhetoric, people will forgive that. Ironically, make a moral stand, it makes people furious. And they very quickly will turn on you. I found that fascinating to realize, because that happened. A lot of my friends back at college had that same sort of reaction. You could say the most hateful, outlandish thing, and they would overlook it in a moment. But say something that they disagreed with on an ethical level, even though you're trying to make a moral argument, they get so infuriated that you're dead to them. And they not only will shun you, they'll actually come after you. There was someone who did that to me when I was a couple years back. They felt moral and like they're on a moral high ground. And they were willing to throw me under the bus. Now, none of them actually stopped to ask if I was saying something that was true or not. They were in mob mentality. It's one of the reasons why I don't use Facebook anymore, because Facebook is where this happened. Which is a shame, because when I got started in streaming and art and animation and storytelling, I lost those connections. Other people got to use those sorts of connections to really get established. I didn't have that. I had to get shouted out by another channel that really helped me to find my footing. But I missed that opportunity. It's going to cost you. And sometimes it's going to cost you something that you don't really see until much, much later. So it's going to cost you to make a stand here and now. But trying to address something in the past, whether it's your past or the past of somebody who is long since deceased, if you have the ability to go after someone back then, boy, my hair is just not cooperating tonight. It keeps tickling right there. And my allergies are kind of kicking right now, so that's why I have to kind of keep it out of there. But when you address something that is old, you get a pass. Oh, I can't stand Napoleon. Oh, Napoleon was the worst man in history. Oh, do you realize what a scumbag he is? You don't have to worry about someone coming after you. Well, unless you come across a Napoleon fan club, and then suddenly that's going to turn things around. But typically that's not going to happen. Now, if you go after a religious figure, that becomes a bit more challenging. Especially if it's somebody who has a very dedicated and faithful following, and they have teachings to kind of help encourage retaliation. You'd probably know which ones I'm talking about. But it's very tough to make a stand against something here and now without people drawing the wrong conclusions. A friend of mine was making a historic argument. He was passionate about it. He was angry about it. He was like, oh, this was a terrible moment in human history, and he made a very good case for it. His argument was solid, and I challenged it and said, I don't actually think that might have been true. He got very defensive. And more defensive than I thought he was going to get, because I was trying to ask a logical question. But the reason why he lashed out so much wasn't necessarily that I was attacking him. I was attacking an idea of the past because I was seeing it being rekindled in our modern era. And when I started drawing a parallel to something happening now, that's when he blew a gasket. That's when he said, nope, you're wrong, that's it, we're done here, and he stormed off. How often do we become so enamored with our own interpretation of history that we start to cut out kind of the parallels? Because again, if you're attacking something that's old, you kind of get a pass. The moment you bring it to something modern, oh, that's when the knives come out. So, if you wanted to talk about something from Sumeria, for example, or talk about something from ancient Babylon, or talk about something from the Persian Empire, you're going to be given a pass for the most part. No one's really going to blow a gasket over what you have to say. People will have heated debates with you, but no one's going to really get super defensive. But the moment you start to say, hey, based upon this history, this feud is happening, or because of this action, we are doomed to repeat a problem. It's a big problem. That's a big problem in itself. How do you deal with something like that? Well, one of the things you have to remember is that the past, the moment you start to connect something to modern day, you need to offer some level of grace and mercy to those that you're talking with. Because you're not studying a very cleaned up version of history, which, by the way, it is not written by the victors. I refuse to believe that. History is written with 2020 vision. You can look back at the past and find clarity over what happened. Now, some people groups are going to be more trustworthy than others. I believe the Romans, in many ways, and the Greeks were very accurate in their descriptions. I think that the Chinese are less so, because there is a cultural difference. There's a reason why we in the West have very accurate history books, and why the New World doesn't. I'm speaking like ancient cultures. There's a complete different perspective. So if you're going to have a heated discussion about something in ancient history, if you're really invested into looking back, it's probably because you want to know how to live for today, or to be able to make sense of what's happening today. There's a lot of people that study the Roman Empire, for example, because they believe we are living in a modern-day Roman Empire, such as what we're experiencing here in America. A lot of people that think about the fall of Rome and wanting to avoid the same problems. And here we are making some of the same mistakes. Same darn mistakes. So, someone can get passionate just based upon that. They're like, hey, our world is falling to pieces. And then they defend history all the more because they believe that the way that you interpret it is going to change your current trajectory as a society. Well, there's some other moments in history where people have that same level of passion and defensiveness. One of them is World War I. Some people look at World War I and they want to have a very clear idea of what was happening because they don't want the same problem to repeat. Ironically enough, just a few decades later, we had World War II. It didn't even work for a few years, let alone dozens to hundreds of years. We are going to make the same mistakes over and over again. You're not going to stop the average person from repeating history, but you can stop your role in contributing to it. That's the one thing you can change. You're not going to be able to force other people to say, hey, don't elect another Caesar. They will eventually. You can't tell people, hey, don't go into communism. It seems to be a common problem with empires when they reach a certain point and people become too downtrodden and then they become embittered. Rather, try and find out how you can contribute, because you're not going to be able to win the argument with people that don't understand or value history. I had a history professor who had no understanding of history. She was the absolute worst when it came to understanding history. She was a revisionist historian. Like I said, Greeks and Romans, I put very high value on their history. I put high value on English history. I put high value on German and French history. I do not put a lot of value on modern reimaginings of history. This professor that I had forced us to watch Kingdom of Heaven. Now there's a lot of people that actually like the film. I did not. It was blasphemous. It had all sorts of very dark sort of beliefs that it was pushing. I did not like it. It was a lie that was designed specifically to try and put blame on Christians for something that the Muslims were doing. The professor then proceeded to try and use it as proof. She was like, hey, this movie proves that Christians are a bunch of scumbags that are trying to destroy peaceful sorts of cultures. She was so ignorant. And I tried making the argument, hey, they were invading Europe. The Crusades were a way to try and balance things out. Put the Muslims on the defensive. Well, she blew a gasket over that I would even insinuate that, even slightly. And it became an area that I had to defend multiple times over throughout that semester because she was so enraged by it. This was back before the woke movement really became national news, and I didn't know what to make of it. And it's not like I could carry a camera in with me. Phone cameras were not super good at that point, and I didn't have the money for an actual camera or even just a recorder. And so I was in a tough bind. I made a report, and people said, "No, you're just imagining things. It's not actually that way." It wasn't until many years later that people were like, "Hey, there's a lot of problems that are taking place with this professor." But anyway, that was a professor who was so entrenched in revisionist history that there was no way on earth that you were going to be able to reason with her in a logical manner. You couldn't have a debate. You couldn't sit down like what Charlie Kirk would do and say, "Hey, let's go through the points one after another and let us try and reason which is the truth." She wouldn't have given him the time of day. She wouldn't give me the time of day either. And I tried. I tried, and I had a lot of students that would agree with me, but she was adamant against me and the other students that thought as I did. And she made sure to punish us with bad grades. Again, no one knew what to really do with this. This was early on in the woke, in the militant woke movement. You could go up and say, "Hey, the Muslims were conducting a slave trade that was way higher than what Europe was having." But she would have defended the Muslim slave trade in a moment. She would defend it constantly, but she would always tear down the Christian aspect of it, which is baffling to me, because I'm not saying that, again, it was good or not, because there's a lot of reasons to believe that it was bad in all ways. But there is such a thing as modern slavery, and when you start to draw the parallels, for her, it became even more troubling to her, and she would lash out all the stronger. Now we're gonna probably go on for another 10 minutes, and then we'll wrap things up for this evening. Again, not a super long stream for tonight, mostly because I was getting the X stream kind of figured out. But now it's all set up, and hopefully it will function fine in the future. If you found anything of merit, feel free to like this stream. And if you didn't like it, if you think I'm wrong, feel free to dislike it. I'll accept that either. I'll accept either one of them, because that means that you're flesh and blood, and at least you gave me the time of day to listen, even if it was for a little while. The drawing that I've been doing has a lot of history that is built into it. A lot of interpretations based upon how I view history. And it's important to look to sources that you believe are true. You can't just accept things just because somebody said that they're true. You have to really do some research into it. You have to use some logic as well, because there's a lot of people that want desperately to deceive you. There was some things that you'll also learn along the way that you think, hey, how come no one is addressing this? And it turns out that, well, no one actually considered that, because when people looked at it, they were not experiencing the challenges that some of the folks were dealing with in that time in history, and so they couldn't quite fully understand how to understand or represent it. And sometimes you reach a point in history where history starts to repeat and it starts to make a lot more sense. Recently, I've been fascinated with the Civil War. Not because I necessarily think that a civil war is imminent or anything. Now, I do think that there is a very big chance that things could go south very fast. But I noticed something in the studying of the Civil War. Before the Civil War began, people referred to the Bleeding Kansas moment. I would say that there is something that goes back even further. I hear about Bleeding Kansas all the time online. Like, oh, we're in the Bleeding Kansas period. You know what happened prior to that? Deception. Decades of people being indoctrinated to think a certain way. All the people that fought for the South, most of them didn't own slaves. Why would they fight to have slaves? Indoctrination. They were not fighting for the slaves. They were fighting because they were told they were fighting for something completely different. The North is the one that declared that, oh, this is a war about slavery. But if you were to ask a Southern man, they would have said, this is about states' rights. Who's correct? Technically, both are correct. The North was fighting to free the slaves. The Southern leadership was fighting to keep their slaves. The common man was fighting to protect their states' rights because they saw violations. There's a lot of people that don't believe that. Some people that are historians too that are like, no, it's not even remotely possible. It had to be that all the men were fighting about slavery in one way, shape, or form. But I remember hearing this, and hearing this interview. It's one of the last Civil War generals, Civil War officers. I think he was a major or a colonel. And they asked him, "Why were you fighting?" And he said, "I was fighting for states' rights." And people were like, "Oh, that's propaganda." He was telling propaganda so he wouldn't be judged severely. But I really thought about it and thought, why would I want to fight for someone else to keep their slaves? Why would I want to risk my life? See, there's actually propaganda that you can find from the Civil War where they focus so much on states' rights that you can't help but think, oh, maybe this is what they use to propagandize their people. So two things can be true. Yes, it was a fight about slavery. No, it was not the only reason. Both are correct. And nowadays, I'm seeing that for decades we have propagandized people. There's people throughout our culture who have been brainwashed in many ways. I myself got to see some of that firsthand. I got to feel the chastisement from a school system that wanted desperately for woke ideology to be the norm. And I went to a Christian college too. 2 Christian colleges. And both of them were pushing this stuff. By the way, if you are part of the Silverado Redeem system, you will see that there are letters off to the left of the screen that spell Alaska. You have the ability to redeem that for the next few days, I believe. I think it goes to the end of September. Then a new code is going to come out, and then you can get more channel points. If you're wondering what you can use with those channel points, you can be able to do all of our soundboard stuff. Want to be able to come in and then use something like this.
Hello there.
It has a 1-second delay for the stream. So basically it's going to be a 3-second delay for most of the platforms. It's a lot faster than some of the other tools that I have tied in. And also it's one where I have complete control over it. So that means that I don't have to worry about it bugging out on me, which was a huge problem for the last couple of years. Stream Elements was a nightmare to work with. Twitch sound effects were a nightmare to work with. They would glitch, they would crash, it caused so many problems. And I finally said, that's it. I'm having way too many problems with this. I'm just going to build my own. And so I built it just for the sake of it. I wanted to have a system that, one, I could learn and get better at programming, but also one that I wouldn't have to worry about paying companies and organizations for a service that I didn't either approve of their politics or approve of their lack of care for the customer. So I was like, well, time to learn, time to get better, and be the change. I know there's a lot of different versions of Stream Elements out there and soundboards. It's not like I did anything revolutionary. You have to practice with something that's, easy to do. And that was a relatively easy thing to make. I mean, it wasn't like super easy, but it was easy for somebody that was learning. It's frozen here. Well, we should be back tomorrow. Again, we'll see what happens with these streams moving forward and see if there's a need to try out other platforms. But for the first week, we're going to stick with X, stick with YouTube and Rumble. But in the future, we may shift those things around. So if you have ideas on platforms, I am willing to consider it, although I'm going to be very choosy about the platforms based upon some personal values. And so things like Kick, never going to Kick. A lot of problems with Kick. But there are other ones out there that I might be considering. TikTok, not doing that one. I know a lot of people are fans of it, but something big has to change on that platform. And one of those things has to be that China has to no longer have any ties to it. And I heard that apparently it's being sold. I'm not so certain that China's going to let it go entirely. China spent a lot of time setting that thing up to control people. And I don't think that they're going to just let it go. That's my suspicion. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, well, we got the majority of the shading figured out. We're at the 1 hour, 10-minute marker. Come on. There we go. Sometimes so I'm working with the number pad to try and do the hotkeys, and sometimes the buttons love to glitch. I'm not entirely sure why. I think it's because it's a Bluetooth. I need to get a wired version of this because it's cheaper than kind of the standard ones that come with an actual tablet. So you do save some money if you just get a number pad. Not bad. Got a bit more improvements that are going to need to happen before it's all ready for the next step in this process, but it's good progress. Well, we're going to bring it to an end. If you found something of merit, feel free to like or dislike. I'll accept both. Let me see if might be able to do a raid on the Rumble side. It's been hit or miss for trying to get Rumble raids going, and for most of the time it's been focusing on Twitch raids, and so I haven't really prioritized stuff over here. What is this channel? Alright, they're not really doing anything. Okay, we're not going to do the raid for Rumble, but we will start doing raids on Rumble since we don't do raids on Twitch. But we'll have to have people over there for those raids to be operational. I refreshed it and the numbers disappeared. Anyway, we're going to call it there. Have a very pleasant evening and morning, everybody. No matter what happens to you, with the views that you have, be civil to one another. We will see you next time, whenever that is. Until next time, folks, have a very pleasant evening.